This is about what I will personally label the idiocy of Team USA women's basketball. How dare you make this decision? It's stupid. And I'm going to tell you why it's stupid. I want all the ladies on this squad to know every single one of y'all are deserving of it. Caitlin Clark does not deserve a spot ahead of any of the players on this roster. Okay? If we're talking just basketball, you know we're not. You know we're not.
You know we're not. Something just happened that flipped the entire sports media universe upside down. No warning, no build-up, just one decision that sent timelines into meltdown mode and exposed who was really prepared and who absolutely wasn't. The reactions got louder, the takes got messier, and one familiar voice went from confident to completely unhinged in record time. Everyone's arguing about what it means, but almost nobody is asking the real question. And that's where this gets interesting.
Are we ready to admit the Caitlin Clark effect? Is this happening without Caitlin Clark? Without the popularity? Because we've seen what happened to the ratings when she was out for those 2-3 weeks. Remember that, right? Don't let me bring that up. Don't let me get some receipts now. When Caitlin Clark was out, the WNBA's popularity dissipated. That is a fact.
The meltdown didn't begin with fireworks. It began with disbelief. The kind of disbelief that makes a grown man stare into the middle distance like his Wi-Fi just disconnected from reality. Somewhere between outrage and confusion, Stephen A. Smith's spirit visibly left the building the moment the news dropped that Caitlin Clark was done with Team USA.
Have popularity? She's number one, and it's not even close. Do you want to have Caitlin Clark on the roster? And if you do, who are you taking off? And how do you tell that person, hey, we want to have the popular girl on? And Caitlin Clark has been playing basketball for almost 10 consecutive months now. She could use a break. I don't want to speak on her behalf, but from what I've seen, she's gone through an awful lot. This is what Team USA is probably worried about. Caitlin Clark's on the bench, and she's not getting any run. And then the fans get upset. Now, that was reported by Christine Brett.
Not injured, not benched, not mysteriously resting, just gone voluntarily, casually, like she had somewhere better to be, which, judging by the reaction, apparently shattered the entire emotional infrastructure of sports television.
USA Women's Basketball was assembling this Olympic squad, and they said, strictly based on the numbers, while Caitlin Clark is an outstanding basketball player, we just don't think she's there yet. And we don't want to take away a spot from someone else that we believe is more deserving from a basketball standpoint, even though we know that she brings millions of eyeballs to this sport. If they left her off this roster because there's concern that her millions of fans would be upset with the amount of playing time that she has, that is absolutely ridiculous.
This wasn't just a player stepping away. This was the chosen one declining the crown. The golden goose politely excusing herself from the dinner table while everyone else was still sharpening their knives. And Stephen A. took it personally. Not professionally, personally. The kind of personally where veins start auditioning for a Marvel movie and logic is escorted out by security.
She's white. And because of that, when you consider some of the hard times other people gave her, they were resentful of the fact that this white girl came on the scene where there was a bunch of sisters that preceded her spanning decades that were big time that deserved a lot of credit. I mean, people looked at the Cheryl Swoops of the world, the Maya Moores of the world, and others, and they said, yo, there was a bunch of people that came before her that did big things for the WNBA. I respect it. It is right. I appreciate it. But whiteness does have its privilege.
Because in Stephen A.'s universe, Team USA isn't just a basketball program. It's Mount Olympus. And Caitlin Clark declining an invitation was treated less like a career decision and more like an act of international betrayal. Somewhere, an eagle probably cried. The outrage came fast, loud, and wrapped in layers of dramatic disbelief. How could someone possibly turn down the honor, the privilege, the chance to wear the jersey, hear the anthem, and be absorbed into the patriotic glow of a tournament that half the country only watches when the men are involved? This was supposed to be the coronation, the moment where Caitlin Clark officially became everyone's favorite talking point, brand ambassador, and ratings cheat code all rolled into one. Instead, she chose peace. And Stephen A. does not respect peace. What followed was less analysis and more performance art. She didn't storm out like a reality TV contestant. She simply opted out calmly, rationally, with the energy of someone who knows exactly what she's doing and doesn't need permission slips from daytime television.
Ticket prices, television ratings, it's a fact. It's undeniable. It's undeniable. That's not to throw shade on a product and act like it doesn't grow at all. It's not to say that there wasn't improvement and there wasn't an elevation in its popularity. It's just saying that it's on another dimension when it comes to Caitlin Clark. Do you know what the best thing that could happen for the WNBA is right now? Are you ready for this? If Caitlin Clark...
That's the real crime. Sports media can forgive drama. It thrives on drama. What it can't forgive is autonomy, especially when that autonomy belongs to a player who has been marketed as the savior of an entire league. The ratings lifeline. The walking endorsement deal. The reason cameras suddenly remembered women's basketball exists. Stephen A. wasn't reacting to a roster decision. He was reacting to a disruption of the narrative. The carefully constructed storyline where Caitlin Clark shows up, dominates, waves the flag, and everyone else falls into line. That script got tossed into the shredder, and the sound you heard was Stephen A.'s blood pressure spiking. Because once you strip away the yelling, the outrage boils down to one uncomfortable truth. Caitlin Clark flipped the equation. She chose rest. She chose focus. She chose her long-term career over a short-term spectacle. And somehow that was framed as selfish. Stephen A.'s reaction made it sound like she personally can-led Christmas.
I blame her. I applaud it. I say do it. Get as far away from the WNBA as you can. Let that league sink. Okay? Do not help them, Caitlin. Get away. I believe you could create your own league. Okay? You could be the fucking player that creates whatever, the next professional women's basketball league. Let this one just go and let Caitlin try to build the next WNBA. I don't know what we'll call it. Maybe we can even do 3-on-3 or 4-on-4, something.
The irony is thick enough to rebound off the rim. For decades, athletes have been told to protect their bodies, manage their workload, think long-term, until they actually do it. Then it becomes a character flaw. Then it's a lack of commitment. Then it's somehow disrespectful to a jersey that will still exist tomorrow, next year, and long after the talking heads have moved on to the next outrage cycle. What really set the tone was the implication that Caitlin Clark owed something. Not to her team, not to her health, but to the spectacle, to the cameras, to the endless debate panels that need her name in the headline to justify their airtime. Stephen A. didn't say that part out loud. He didn't need to, about being overused, about how the league failed to protect its biggest star.
I think on both fronts, merit and publicity, you of course mentioned it, it's just a total swing and a miss by the national governing body, by USA Basketball. But I'll start with my answer by saying I have covered this women's basketball team, and I've covered it longer than anyone else probably. And what happens when you go to a women's gold medal game, U.S. women's basketball, the greatest team, most dominant team on the planet, men's, women's, any sport, Rich, I could make that case. They last lost in the 1992 Olympics. That's how good they are.
A program stacked with talent, tradition, and depth would crumble into dust without one player. As if the entire system was built on Caitlin Clark's jump shot and nothing else, which ironically says more about her impact than any praise ever could. Because you don't react like that unless you know, you don't explode unless something hit close to home. And what hit was the realization that Caitlin Clark has leverage. Real leverage. The kind that doesn't require shouting to prove it exists. The league has been dining out on her presence since the moment she stepped into the spotlight. Ticket sales. Stephen A.'s response wasn't about patriotism. It wasn't about legacy. It wasn't even about basketball. It was about control, about who gets to decide what matters, about who gets to dictate the narrative.
Caitlin, what was your reaction when you saw the USA team yesterday, the roster come out?
Yeah, I think I'm excited for the girls that are on the team. I know it's the most competitive team in the world, and I know it could have gone either way of me being on the team, me not being on the team. So, I'm excited for them. I'm going to be rooting them on to win gold. I was a kid that grew up watching the Olympics, so yeah, it'll be fun to watch them. Honestly, no disappointment. Like, I think it just gives you something to work for. You know, that's a dream. You know, hopefully one day I can be there, and I think it's just a little more motivation. You remember that, and you know, hopefully in 4 years, when 4 years comes back around, you know, I can be.
And Caitlin Clark just reminded everyone that she doesn't need permission. The funniest part is how quickly the conversation turned into a morality play. As if choosing not to participate in one tournament somehow erased years of dedication, discipline, and excellence. As if declining Team USA was equivalent to turning your back on the sport itself. Meanwhile, the same ecosystem routinely celebrates players who skip events, manage minutes, or strategically pace themselves. But context matters, and the context here was that Caitlin Clark didn't follow the script. Stephen A's frustration felt less like anger and more like panic. Panic that the center of gravity had shifted. Panic that the usual pressure tactics didn't work. Panic that yelling louder didn't make the decision disappear. Because no amount of volume can undo a choice already made. And the more he talked, the clearer it became. This wasn't about convincing Caitlin Clark to reconsider. It was about convincing the audience that she was wrong, that the machine still had authority, that the spectacle still mattered more than the individual. But the audience isn't stupid. They saw what happened. They saw a player make a calm, calculated decision in a league that's constantly demanding emotional labor from its stars. And instead of chaos, the world kept spinning.
Never even be part of the conversation. It should be who's worthy enough to be on the team and who is not. And Caitlin Clark certainly has that resume if you want to put her in that conversation. It just feels to me like I've been waiting my entire life for women's sports to be getting the shine that it deserves. And we are here. And we're self-sabotaging this thing. I cannot understand why there is so much resistance to Caitlin Clark, who has done absolutely nothing but prove that she's a baller and handle every situation, every pressure, every responsibility with grace. Her response to all of this...
Team USA didn't collapse. Basketball didn't end. The sport didn't lose its soul. The only thing that took a hit was the illusion that every star must comply. And that's what made Stephen A's explosion so fascinating. It wasn't just noise. It was a crack in the facade. Because if Caitlin Clark can say no, others might start thinking they can too. That's the real fear. A league full of players who understand their value. Who don't rush to every stage just because the cameras are rolling. Who prioritize longevity over optics. Who don't sacrifice their bodies for someone else's talking point. That's not a meltdown waiting to happen, which in a world addicted to outrage felt revolutionary. The irony is that this moment probably did more to cement her status than any medal ever could. Because medals fade, narratives shift, but moments where a player asserts control over their career stick. Stephen A will move on. The panels will reset. The next controversy will roll in right on schedule. But this moment will linger. The moment where Caitlin Clark reminded everyone that she's not just a player in the game, she's a decision maker.
On that team, the team that so richly deserves attention and doesn't get it and won't get it without her. Because there's just so much going on in an Olympics. On that same day, there probably will be 30 other gold medals given out, and sports editors and others have to make a decision. Do you go to Simone Biles? Do you go to women's soccer? Where do you go? It's not, there's just too much going on. You put Caitlin Clark on that team, and every single one of those guys that can't stand women's basketball are running to watch that team, and not just Americans.
Let's talk about the merit part of it.
Right before we went on, I was looking at the WNBA stats. Caitlin Clark is 4th in assists in the WNBA. That's better than several of the women who are on the list as guards, and certainly better than Diana Taurasi.
And that's what made the explosion so loud. Because when the power dynamic changes, the noise always comes from the side that's losing control. And that loss of control is what turned a simple roster decision into a full-blown televised crisis. Because once the shouting fades, what's left is an uncomfortable silence where the old rules no longer apply. The rule that says stars must always say yes. The rule that says exposure is payment enough. The rule that says gratitude should override strategy. Caitlin Clark stepped right over those rules without even glancing back, and the echo of that step rattled every studio microphone in the building. Stephen A's outrage tried to reassert order. The reaction also exposed how selective the outrage really is. When players skip events for rest, it's framed as wisdom. When they do it quietly, it's professionalism. But when Caitlin Clark does it, suddenly it's framed as audacity. As if confidence without permission is the ultimate sin. As if knowing your limits is somehow disrespectful to tradition.